So for our first class, we want to talk about what the news is and how we can define the news and what's important for telling a good story. And that's pretty much described as the following. What is news? News is anything that will make people talk. News can be informative. It can be about events that are taking place or have happened that give information to the reader. Or it could be a story that's interesting. And the magic of making a magazine is that we can write for both. We have the opportunity to either create informative articles or just write things that are interesting. Kind of personal profile pieces, things like that, or reviews. Anything that captures the reader's attention and makes people want to talk about it or like it on Facebook or like it on Instagram or retweet it or anything on social media. So whatever interests the reader. So the question becomes, can something be news even if it's not important? Because information that's important to the readers, can something be information and not be news? And one more thing, news is factual. News must be based on the facts. We can't really, whatever we write, we can't really bend the facts in regards to what we are writing. And it must be accurate. Otherwise, it's not news, it is opinion. And there can be a fine line between news and opinion. And sometimes it's hard to see. So in this first class, what we're actually going to do is we're going to look at the differences between news, which is factual, and opinion, someone's individual ideas and thoughts. So here are some good quotes that give you a sense of what news is. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but not their own facts. That's by Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan. And we are recorders and reporters of the facts, not judges of the behavior we describe. And I think that's a really good quote. And this is from the Institute of Sex Research. But also from there, we become the recorders and reporters for what we see and what we do sometimes. And when we write the news-related pieces, we need to be aware of the difference between just reporting on what we see and what we do. And that sometimes means that we have to take our own personal beliefs and put them on the back burner in order to get a really good news story. So one of the major tenets of news is accuracy. You have to get your facts right. If you don't, there are a lot of big problems that can occur from this. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the upcoming weeks regarding libel and slander and inaccuracies in news and the dangers that it can cause. Because once we do have a strong readership, it becomes difficult for us to actually get credibility when the accuracy of our stories is jeopardized. So a fact is something that can be verified, measured, or proven. An example is the temperature. Or opinion is a personal viewpoint, subject to the interpretation. So for instance, the opinion would be 78, it is hot outside. I wouldn't say 78 personally is hot. I would say that's a pretty comfortable temperature that I would like to live at. So here are some tips for some accurate reporting. 1, verify each fact and quote. If you're in doubt about anything, check with your sources again. And it's always a good idea after you write your article or you quote someone to actually, if you have the opportunity, to send them an advanced copy of the article. That's something that's up for debate for a lot of people, but it's always a good thing. People appreciate it that you give them your approval, and the benefit of that is that they'll work with you more in the future. So the other thing you want to do is you want to double check spellings of names as well as grade levels and titles. When it comes to spelling of names, it should be the first question that you ask. How do you spell your name? What's your name, and how do you spell it? And you should always refer to official documents listing this information, such as homeroom lists or advisory lists or the school directory. And use Google to double check the names of organizations, businesses, and places. So you always want to make sure that you get the accurate spelling and names correct. And it's one of the primary flaws sometimes in young writers. And you always want to double check the dates that you've either created for the interview, or if you're going to an event, you want to make sure that those dates are accurate. So one of the things that we're going to be doing in here is objective reporting. To be fair in news reporting, you must report the facts without bias. So that means you need to be objective and stick to the facts about the who, what, where, why, and how kind of pyramid of writing that we'll talk about in our next classes. You can't let your own personal opinion, your feelings for the subject take over. So you might be interviewing someone and they have diversely different ideas than you do. That's okay. You are there to listen to their ideas and to report them. You're not there to get into an argument over ideas with them. So, and also, objective reporting doesn't refer to what you're tested on or what you have to learn today. Objective means not influenced by personal feelings, interpretations, or prejudice. It's based on facts and it's unbiased. It's the opposite of what's called subjective. A subjective lens means placing excessive emphasis on your own moods, your own attitudes, your opinions, and etc. We do have a space for that. It's called the editorial or opinions column, and it's something that we have developed, and it's a good place to kind of exercise your own voice. And that's one of the major beauties of journalism, is that we separate the reporting from our own opinions. But there's a place for that to kind of communicate your own ideas. But the only problem is that if you are subjective, you also have to realize that you're being biased and not fair to whatever you are writing about in regards to reporting the news. So editorializing is a great way to get your opinion in a story. If you report about a pep rally, for instance, or FangFest, and say that everyone had a great time, you are editorializing. You are making a big statement saying that everyone there at FangFest or the pep rally was having a good time, even though you probably know there's that one kid way up in the balcony sulking because he just broke up with his girlfriend or something. That person probably is not having a good time. And so when you do that, when you put that idea that everyone's having a good time, you're actually editorializing an article. What you want to do is you want to report on what you saw and heard, not what you think or feel. And through that, what you're going to allow is for your reader to actually kind of draw their own conclusions on what they think or feel. And remember that when you are writing an editorial and you do put those emotions into your pieces, you're not being an objective reporter. It's not fair in the sense of that it's news, but it does have a place within a magazine. One of the other things you want to do is you want to balance your coverage. Balance facts with other facts, opinions with other opinions. So if you're writing an article, let's say, on extending the school day or something like that, you're going to find people that are really supportive of that idea. They want to, but you're also going to find people that don't want that to happen. So you should be going out there and finding facts for both sides. And so you're not just presenting one side of an argument, you're presenting both sides. And that's when it becomes an information source for the readers, because they have the opportunity to see both sides of the story right in front of them. And you always want to try to interview representatives on both sides of an issue. The people that provide your information also really matter. So the sources that you bring into this are really important. So let's say on the extended school day, let's say that Sohegan is going to go to it's going to go to 5 o'clock at night, but we're going to get to school at 9, so it would be a regular 9 to 5 schedule. Some of the sources that you would want to provide really do matter in a story like this. So it's essential to interview and quote the right sources, the people who are experts on the topic. It's great to interview your friend on one of these, but they're not necessarily the best source. They are affected by this, and that would be one thing. But if you're trying to bring a balance to it, you might want to interview the superintendent of the school, or the principal, or even someone in the bus barn who drives the buses, because their schedules change as well. Those are people that are somewhat experts on the topic, because with changing the school day, there's a transportation issue, and with principals and superintendents, there's also issues in staffing, the health benefits, all those things. So what you really have to do are look at the topic itself, what are the pros and cons, then figure out who are the experts for those pros and cons. Again, the idea of fairness becomes into play here. So you want to balance both sides. You just don't want to say, yay, we should go to an extended school day. You want to be able to present both sides of the argument. And in being objective, again, means you don't insert your own thoughts. So you might be against it, but you just don't want to present that one side of the story. When it comes to accuracy, sometimes two sides are not always equal. You have to use your best judgment and knowledge as a reporter to present the factual information. Sometimes when it comes to accuracy, someone might not be telling the truth, or one side of it is mostly opinion and there are no kind of facts to back that up. So you really have to do your best job in producing both sides of an accurate story. So here's a good quote from A.J. Wiggins. He's an editor and publisher. A newspaper cannot really congratulate itself on having got at the facts impartially when it has quoted at length from two uninformed idiots on opposing sides of an issue. So you really, this kind of gets to the point of you want to get to the experts behind the story, not necessarily the people that just hear rumors and hearsay regarding the information. So once again, news is something that's interesting. Your audience wants to read about it. It can be it's informative. It tells them something new that they didn't know before. It should be factual and accurate, and it's also fair. It's both objective, meaning that it's devoid of opinion, and it's balanced, meaning that it's bringing in multiple sides of a topic or argument. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to SAU39slearning.com. You're going to go to Sabre Digital Magazine, and we're going to scroll down, and here it says now it's time to complete our news or not activity. We're going to click on that handout, and what we're going to do in class today is we're going to have a little discussion regarding whether or not something is news or whether it's not. So if we click on that handout, it'll pop right up. It'll pop up in a Word document, and we can say whether something is news or not news. So if we read each event below, we can think about some good example of news in the news box and write why you think it is news or what makes it newsworthy to you. If you don't think it's news, in the not news box, suggest something that might make it newsworthy, a new fact or detail that we could use in order to kind of invent those ideas. All right? So let's say it rains 5 days straight in May, for example. Is that news? And why would it be newsworthy? Or is it not news, but what could make it newsworthy? For me, what I would consider is whether or not 5 days straight of rain is something that's dangerous. So we're in an area that's pretty perceptive to flooding. And so what we have to do is we have to be able to understand whether or not this 5 days of straight rain in May is going to cause flood conditions for our town. So in that sense, is 5 days straight of rain newsworthy? Probably not, because anyone can walk outside or look out their window and see that it's been raining for a while. However, there are some things that could make it newsworthy. One could be something about flooding, or two, why or how, what is making it rain so much? Is there some sort of tropical storm that's over us? Or is there a hurricane on the way? Where did it come from? Is this something to do with global warming? So there's potential angles to everything that we can see, but we just have to find them. So as a class, what we're going to do today is we're going to go through this handout, finding out whether things are newsworthy or not.